The transfer portal really allows teams today to kind of completely reinvent themselves from one year to the next. In college basketball, I've compared it to like JUCO ball, because sometimes you're flipping your roster over completely. Now, nobody flipped it over quite like Texas State did, maybe Colorado, but so Zach, how aggressive does Baylor need to be when this transfer portal starts opening up this next week? And what are some of the biggest areas of need?
Well, I think you can look at it two ways. I don't think you're going to see a lot of incoming transfers on defense. I think they really like where they're at on defense, and there's a lot of young players that have already committed to come back on that side of the ball. Offense is a completely different, animal. Obviously, new coordinator, new scheme, all that fun stuff. So very aggressive offensively, especially on the offensive line. I know everybody's going to say that because everybody needs offensive linemen, but I think especially Baylor. And I'm really this whole transfer portal and recruiting with Spav coming in. It's fascinating to me because Keff. I'm glad we have Keff on right now because I have a question for him. I think the last two recruiting classes for Spav in San Marcos, did they have 4 total high school recruits or something ridiculous like that? They had 4 total high school recruits and like 35 transfers. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 2 classes combined. That sounds correct. I can remember the last class specifically. There was 2 high school recruits, and I feel like it was about the same deal with the last one. Both classes had around 20 transfers. So Spavital is very familiar with the transfer portal, and he did get some really good players out of the transfer portal here at Texas State. They weren't all hits. There were some misses, but he is familiar with the transfer portal, and he, and I was kind of talking about this where the talent level at his previous schools were pretty good. The resources here weren't what they were there. And so he wasn't able to get a lot of those players here. Now, a lot of that depends on what kind of recruiting you do, but he was still able to retain some pretty good players that are even still here that he grabbed out of the transfer portal. So yeah, he's very familiar with that for sure.
I mean, and I guess we saw how that kind of ended at Texas State with his transfer players, but I think that Baylor is again a different animal. I think he can maybe attract some more. And I know it's not all him doing the recruiting and bringing in people in the transfer portal. Dave has a big deal with that, and they announced like an hour ago when they officially announced the hire that Sean Bell is staying around. He's going to be the tight ends coach, and I know he's got some very deep roots in the Texas high school coaching kind of tree. So I to answer your question, I think especially on offense, Baylor needs to be very aggressive in the transfer portal, and I think a guy like Spav sets him up pretty well to do just that.
Well, and obviously one area that could be a need, I mean, I would say probably is a need. I guess it's how you feel about Sawyer Robertson or not. But they are losing their starting quarterback. Blake Shapen has entered the portal. We'll see if anything changes with Spav coming on, if maybe Blake changes his mind. I guess you can do that. But I did think it was interesting. I don't know if you guys saw this quote from Matt Rule, where he was talking about, so at some press conference, some Nebraska press conference, they were talking about transfer portal and NIL and all of that. And he said, yeah, well, a good quarterback now will run you $1.5 million, 2 million. I mean, it's just like, what? What are we doing? I mean, it's so, I mean, we're into college football full on free agency.
It's professional football at this point.
Yeah, it really is. And so you talk about Baylor having to be aggressive. I mean, Baylor has to be aggressive, I mean, it's going to have to pay out for some of these guys if it wants the better guys. And of course, I mean, Zach, you and I know that they're planning on kind of trying to do that, to get a little more aggressive. They feel like, they haven't been quite at the same level as some of these other schools.
Yeah. I mean, but where is that money going to come from? There's a bunch more questions that, need to be answered before we actually get there.
Yeah. And your point about Spav and how many recruit or transfers he had at Texas State is good and insightful. That said, I mean, I do think recruiting to Baylor is a little different than recruiting to Texas State. I mean, I think, you know, at some point you're always going to want to have a fair amount of high school seniors in your recruiting class, you know, because you know, you want to bring in good talent and develop it and you know, get those kids in the weight room and you know, get you some 4 stars. I mean, Baylor doesn't get a lot of 5 stars, but maybe you can get some 4 stars in there, you know, and get them started from the outset. A guy like, you know, Caden Jenkins or whatever.
Mhm.
So who might have even been a 3-star, was he, Zach?
He was a 3-star, correct.
Yeah. So and that's been really Baylor's MO for a long time, is getting those kind of players and building them up and developing them. So, you know, they don't generally compete with the Alabamas and Texases of the world for the recruit.